we just had Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving, of course, is, about gratitude. And, in Buddhism, we look at gratitude in the same way that we look at the way practice unfolds in our own life. First of all, it's not selfish. We come to Buddhism because, for most of us, a message has gotten through that perhaps our way of living is not ideal. That Buddha taught us how to live harmoniously. He taught us how to be more skillful in our lives. He wanted to tamp down it, if not eliminate, this, what he saw as an unnecessary need to suffer. That while life is full of difficulties and we don't have much choice in a lot of ways, situations we find ourselves in, suffering is a kind of optional reality. We don't have to actually suffer to it. But so his teaching really pointed to that kind of reality, first of all. And I think most of us get that. But the practice itself is not based on singularity. It's not based on what we feel works for ourselves alone. Because what he was pointing to is that we are all interconnected. And so gratitude is, we go beyond the boundaries of what our individual preferences are. So one of the ways that, I found this quote that will help us understand what the wish is, what we want as Buddhists. And I think I've used this before. It's always sitting around somewhere. And this is what Albert Einstein said. He said that a human being is part of a whole called by us universe. It's a part that's limited in time and space. We experience ourselves as a kind of a thoughts and feelings. That's something separate. A kind of optical delusion, he called it, of the senses. A kind of consciousness that divides. He said it's a prison for us. It locks us into only our personal views alone, and to affection for a few people closest to us, or maybe a group, a philosophy, a political view, a religious view, even. He said, if we want to grow, our task, he said, is to free ourselves by using compassion as a way to widen our boundaries, a more of a boundless way of living, so that we can embrace life, warts and all, difficulties and all. So we can see life, appreciate life. Use this time to appreciate our life. So, we say here that, this teaching, religious or not, spiritual or not, is closer to a skill set. It's the art of well-being. And it's the unfolding of our own awakening. But it doesn't stop here. So that's the beginning of our practice. All Mahayana Buddhists, all sects of Buddhism, regardless of whether it's faith-based, like Pure Land, or whether it's rooted in this being in the moment, this practical emphasis of Zen, all Mahayana Buddhists have the vows of a Bodhisattva. That's what a Mahayana Buddhist is. We don't say them here so much, but we probably should. They're written actually in our Zendo. If you've been, you come here and you look at the mantle, and above the mantle fireplace, there's a plaque written. That plaque is the 4 vows. You want to get it? that plaque is the 4 vows. And it starts like this. Shujo muhen se gando bono. Maybe we should say it together. Shujo muhen se gando bono mujin se gandan homon muryo se gangaku butsudo mujo se ganjo. It's kind of Japanese, of course. But in English, it means that sentient beings are numberless. And my vow is to free them, to save them. And our delusions are inexhaustible. This, yeah. Yeah. This is fun. 4 vows. And the Dharma gates, or ways in which we enter the practice, are in themselves boundless, but our vow is to master them. And even though the Buddha way is unattainable, we vow to attain it. There are many translations of this that have to do with less about saving, but more understanding or connecting with. You can read many different versions of this, but these, I think, are the classic translations. So what is our job? What is this trying to tell us? So if we see the world as only through our own vision, then we will wind up discarding some things and accepting others, and that's fine. But when we say save all beings, we mean not to discard, not to discount. That our life is reflected in somebody else's life, and then back to us. So compassion, is linked to integrity. So it's about how we do not want to corrupt our mind by being self-centered. We have to help ourselves first. Can't teach somebody how to sit if we don't sit ourselves. And it's a kind of unimpaired vision of the world. And then, of course, it's complete. There's nothing lacking, there's nothing superfluous. When we approach it like that, then we've already saved everybody. I was once, had my car fixed here, and the mechanic offered to drive me home. And he just, got in the car and he drove me here and on the roads. And he finally turned to me and he said, I know that place of yours, that Zen center. He said, tell me, how do you save, what's salvation in Buddhism? It was a pretty heavy question to ask on the way home from the mechanic's office. So I said, we save people by teaching them that they don't need saving. You're already saved. Realizing it is what you need to do. That's the work. And even though our delusions are inexhaustible, we end them by not being deluded by them. There's a difference. And of course, the dharmas are boundless. Every moment that we live is a new, brand new moment. And the Dharma gate is not appeared before. So it's a shapeless practice because it takes shape when we live. So we have to vow to master this moment we're in by using the Buddhist teaching in that moment. And it's not attainable because there's nothing to attain. The vow is to, we have to renew our practice each moment we live. There's no formula for translating Sunday to Monday. This moment comes around once. So Nagarjuna teaches that, if you really want to understand this, you have to see into the world of impermanence. You have to be able to have the adaptability, flexibility, to have a Buddhist practice when it doesn't look like one. or one doesn't feel like one. That's why we practice gratitude or compassion, not because we want to be grateful, compassionate people. That would be enough. That'd be enough by itself. But we do so to break down this false notion of separateness, to not judge true or false, right or wrong, but to practice what we know to be good, because what's good includes more people. It includes a wider range. It doesn't narrow our view, it broadens our view. So the vows are, connected to this bodhisattva ideal, bodhicitta, awakened mind, this altruistic feeling that this practice, even in the most ordinary circumstances, can be a benefit to everyone. The vow is to the promise, the vow to ourselves is we're not going to make this a separate reality than anything else. We're not going to create a Buddhist world as opposed to somebody else's world. And yet we understand our forms just like we understand that if I want to garden, or if I want to repair something, I have to have the skill set to do it. If we want to help people, we have to have the skill set to go beyond our personal views. And so the Bodhisattva vows are a constant reminder to us, don't create boundaries. Let the world come to you as an example of enlightenment, Dogen tells us. He says, don't go out and try to fix it, to find some example of it. He says, you're going to find lots of examples. But if you allow the world to come to you, then your skill is a choice of, do I want to have a wholesome life or not? What is the skill involved in being more harmonious and more balanced, Buddhism or not? It's really difficult to make that choice locked into our own personal views. So the Bodhisattva vows are not a vow to go out and muck around in people's personal lives. They're a way to be grateful for their personal lives because they show us. Either they show us an example of what is skillful or not, but we should still be grateful for it. They're not, nobody is separate. And, delusions are inexhaustible, so we don't need to exhaust them. We don't need to extinguish them. We end them by being grateful for them. Oh, thank you for your delusions. If it wasn't for delusions, how would I know the opposite? What would I do? It's not to beat up on ourselves or judge somebody. It's the reality of understanding that there is a skill set to living as a complete human being. And that we pick up compassion, we pick up insight as a practice. And we're free to dislike and like what we want. We're just not defined and caught by it, and then we have to make sure that that's what we impose on other people. We don't have leaders to teach us this. Certainly not now. But so we have to do it. Well, even if we did, we'd still have to. It would just be easier. We'd have some example bigger than us, but that's not the case. So we identify our practice with the world we live in. This is where we practice. The Chinese master once said, Yunmen, he was, I think we were talking about Fayan last time, that small sect or division of Buddhism that didn't last very long. He said, if where you stand is reality, then your actions have power. And reality is interconnected reality. Then our actions will have some power. Otherwise, it's always setting an opposition or opposed to something. And this opposition, constant opposition, is limiting, often unnecessary, mostly exaggerated, useful to a point. But we want to stand in reality. We want to stand in that reality that talks to us about the necessity of having this vow, this understanding that when we wake up in the morning, that our practice directs us past our narrow view of life and ourselves. And so we should be more harmonious and balanced because of that. So so every day our practice is brand new. So it's not that we say sentient beings that I care about number in the 100. I vow to take care of those 100 people. Finish. Well, that I've identified a few delusions that I really need to deal with and get over with, and then I'll be fine. So on. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just limiting and not accurate for Buddhist teaching. I don't think Buddha wanted us to just stop doing things or dial it down or become ascetics or live in a cave or something because the material world was the enemy. We needed a place of simplicity to be able to see that we've created an enemy that doesn't exist. And then what happens when we walk around? Precepts are our walking practice. The vow keeps that engine of awareness going so we don't take anything for granted. So we can name things we're grateful for and we can name things we're ungrateful for. But the gratitude that we're talking about is that we got to be born as humans. And we get this one life to make a huge impact on life itself. So we could narrow our practice or we could widen it. But the truth is, the world we live in is boundless. It's inexhaustible. It's constantly changing. We see into the world of impermanence. We see into the nature that exists at that moment. And then we can stand in reality. Then our actions have some real effect, not just based on a narrow view. It's kind of our challenge. And that's how we characterize this as a path or a way. Shapeless. So stand in your own reality. The own practice allows Zazen to teach you. Look to the guidance that we've been given for so many years. Take it to heart. And it won't seem so difficult, so mysterious. We'll be surprised how strong we can be when we don't try to manufacture it, but we stand in reality. That's our bodhicitta, that's our awakened mind. Always connected to life, bigger than what we would normally identify with. So we practice with all beings, and that actually means all beings, not just the ones we like. It's always a catch. He didn't tell me that part. And what better example of that than Sangha? We're all very different. We might not know each other in a social setting or a work setting or casual, but we know ourselves through this practice. And who right now is lacking that ability? Who doesn't have that fundamental teaching in their own heart. It's already there. So we're not here to change each other. We're here to see each other in each other. That's Sangha. And help each one to keep that Bodhisattva vow going. So we say for the sake of others, the sake of other beings we practice, for the sake of each other we practice. Alone doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and the reality of it is less powerful when we're disconnected. It's not as skillful. Already we're thinking now, of the new year. This has been an incredibly challenging year. If anything would make us go into his little shell, this year would do it. Protect ourselves, literally, figuratively. But in doing so, we shouldn't become selfish. We should become more selfless. That's healthier. Then we could take care of each other that way. You see the world as a place of belonging and connection, as opposed to the world is a place that we have to protect ourselves against it. Both are true, but we see the world differently. So a human being, we're we're individuals, but we're not separate from the whole, we're part of the whole. And we have a lot of power in that position. So our personal desires are important, but we shouldn't be limited alone by them. And our practice isn't just for ourselves. That's important to keep in mind going forward, I think. It's a reminder. So the more we identify with something beyond ourselves, the more rich our practice is. And that's why I say, take care of yourself. You're very important. The books that are written and the teachings that are put out are wonderful, but they're not more important than you. Okay.
May this merit extend universally to all, so that we, together with all beings, realize the Buddha way. Beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to realize it.